Hey there, kiddos. Not exactly how I thought we would finish the semester, but hey, I told y'all nobody comes back after spring break. Just didn't expect it to be the entire school. Um, this first week back is going to be kind of weird for everybody. We're still trying to figure out technology. Excuse me, I'm still trying to figure out technology because I am not the most tech savvy person that I know. Um, so we're going to work through this the best we can. So how my goal is, as far as how I'm hoping that it will work, is that I will just post a real quick video outlining what chapter's coming up this week. And then I'll post the homework for this week. And of course, like everything else, I want it due by the next class meeting. So I will change the due dates on the homework and upload a new calendar so that we can adjust for everything that's happened or that's going to happen the rest of the semester. Technically, everything is kind of shut down until April 15th. But the reality is it's probably going to be the rest of the semester, and we're looking at maybe even the possibility of the entire summer semester. But we just have to wait and see how all this goes, see what the governor decides, see what a president decides, and hopefully we can get through this with as few casualties as possible. So that being said, real quick, I'm just going to kind of run down for you guys chapters 10 and 11. So chapter 10 is really just about motivation and why we do what we do. The definition of motivation is a force that moves people to behave, think, and feel as they do. Motivation energizes, directs, and sustains our behaviors. The book is going to go through different theories of motivation, the evolutionary approach, which is your instincts. We don't have to necessarily be motivated to go eat or motivated to go drink. It's an instinct. Our body tells us when we're hungry, our body tells us when we're thirsty. And then followed by that is the drive reduction theory, which needs, drives, homeostasis, which is just that place where everything is kind of neutral. We want that. We don't want to be too much of anything. We don't want to be too less of anything. We want that even keel, not too much, not too little. But again, the book is going to go into a lot more detail. The fun part about motivation is hunger. Now, when we're thirsty, one of the first things that happens is, of course, the mouth gets dry. How do we know when we're hungry? Your stomach is going to start to growl. In my house, we call it hangry. And nobody's themselves when they're hangry. So my daughter says that we should keep a Snickers bar close by. But, hey, right, to each their own. But it all goes back to your blood chemistry. You've got your glucose, your insulin, and how your body absorbs it. Is there enough? How do you make more? There's also leptin. All of these are going to be covered again in your book. I really don't want to spend this time really kind of focusing too much. Of course, psychological factors. How often do we say, oh, I'm going to eat my feelings, I'm going to eat my feelings? The typical breakup scenario of sitting on the sofa with a spoon in one hand and ice cream in the other. So psychological factors sometimes can cause us to eat or to, to behave in certain ways as far as, why we're motivated to do one thing or another. Excuse me. External food cues are another thing. Again, we've talked a lot about the whole Publix thing. When you get out, maybe you're not going into Publix, to take care of dinner. Maybe you just need to run, you need to run and do one thing or another, but then you get out of the car and you're like, oh my gosh, it smells like chicken. So, so then it all becomes about, ooh, now I want chicken. So those external food cues about the smells, the sights, you know, just the entire environment of what's going on with our food and smells and whatnot. Which is why commercials are so good at what they do, because the burger that's on the menu, the picture of the burger that's on the menu is not going to be the burger that you get. But if it all looked like, if the burger on the menu looked like the burger that we were going to get, we probably wouldn't want to eat it. So that causes, so that's why there's so much money focused on the picture of that burger, because that's what's going to make us want to eat that burger. One of the things that, or some of the current research is focusing on time and place cues, basically wanting to, at least in a school type environment with our smaller kids anyway, is we want to get their little tummies on a schedule. So they know that after fourth period they go into lunch, and so they know that lunch period is 30 minutes. So they know that, so their tummies get on a schedule. And if we don't have our coffee at a certain time, if we don't eat our breakfast at a certain time, life gets kind of weird. And so that's what it is. It's that our body knows that at this certain time or at this certain place we're supposed to eat. And of course, the sad part about all of the food is there comes with all that, sadly, different types of eating disorders. The two most, I guess, the two eating disorders that most of us are aware of are anorexia and bulimia. Anorexia, again, this is not about I want to be skinny, I want to be skinny. Eating disorders are more times not about one having control over something. I'm out of, my life feels out of control. I can't control anything. My parents are telling me what to do, when to do it, how to do it. So this gives me something that I can control. So the difference between bulimia and anorexia is anorexia has more to do with the lack of sustenance. I'm not going to eat. I'm going to pick at my food. And of course, with what happens, especially in ladies or in girls, if you have less than a certain amount of body weight, then the menstrual cycles are going to stop. Because the body needs that to do what it's supposed to do. So anorexia is starvation, whereas bulimia is what they call binge and purge, which is I'm going to eat and eat and eat and then throw up. What happens though is it becomes a cycle, and you've got I'm going to eat and eat and eat because of psychological issues. I'm depressed, I'm out of control, I'm hopeless, I'm whatever. So I'm going to eat. And then I'm going to, so I'm going to eat and eat and eat and binge, and then purge, meaning to throw up. And then what happens is we feel guilty about what we've just done. So then we go back and we punish ourselves by eating. And so it becomes a vicious cycle. Again, most eating disorders are more common in females, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's just females, because there are men out there who suffer from both anorexia and bulimia as well. Of course, with both of them, there's extreme medical dangers. The mortality rate, especially for anorexics, is pretty high, because what happens is they literally starve themselves to death. And we all, well, not we, but those that suffer from these eating disorders sometimes they have what's called body dysmorphia syndrome, which is what I see isn't necessarily what it is. When I see something or when I feel something, I may feel fat, but in reality I'm a size 0, but that doesn't really matter. What matters is I feel fat. And the other way around, I can feel very thin. I can feel like a size 2, but my genes say size 20, not size 2. But I feel thin. I feel, so it can go both ways, but most of it has to do with psychological factors. There's also sociocultural issues. Media tells us we have to be thin. Victoria's Secret tells us we have to be thin. One of the things that I've started watching was, the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, their whole training camp process. And one of the things that they talk about is how, if you don't fit in the uniform, you can't wear it, which I get. But you're also talking about people that have, that are so thin you can see their hip bones, you can see their rib cages, and very rarely do they ever talk about being too thin. Most of the time it's you need to weigh between 102 and 108, and I'm like, oh my gosh, right? So sometimes, depending on where we are, society is telling us we have to be thin. Media images, you look at our magazines are talking about, the models are thin. I mean, it's only been here within the last few years that Sports Illustrated has welcomed the thick models, right? The plus size models. But even with that, there was a great deal of kickback from the media going, well, now we're saying it's okay to be fat. It's not okay to be fat. It's not okay to be ultra skinny. What is most important is you need to talk with your doctor to find out what is best for you. Sometimes family interactions cause us to be more thin or more fluffy. If we have a fluffy family, then there's always going to be that you need to eat a cheeseburger. If we're too fluffy in a thin family, it's you need to lay off the cheeseburgers. But if depending on the environment in which you spend most of your time is going to play a huge factor. Genetics, again, if you're in a fluffy family, that may be genetic. Serotonin, your body needs to produce and absorb a certain amount of serotonin. Without that, it's going to serotonin levels are going to greatly impact your body shape, size. And also, once women go into menopause, things change a whole lot because those hormones aren't helping to regulate either serotonin levels or insulin levels. Binge eating is just recurrent episodes of and compulsively eating large amounts of food. You're not hungry when you eat, you just eat to eat because it's there, I don't want to waste it, whatever. Again, different things can cause that. So here's where Maslow comes in. So we have what's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, when you look at most scales, it goes from top to bottom, whereas Maslow's goes the other way around, where what's on the bottom is what's most necessary, and then everything kind of goes up from there. So the first thing is the physiological needs, basically your food, your sleep, your safe, food, sleep. Do I have the physical things that I need? From there is your safety needs. Do I have somewhere to stay? Do I have somewhere to sleep that's safe? Then it's loving belongingness. What population do I belong to? What population is going to be there to support me? What population is going to be there to hold my hand as I do things throughout the world? It's that extrinsic motivation. That extrinsic meaning external motivation. That's that stuff from outside pushing us to go forward. And then on the flip side of that is what we call intrinsic motivation, or that internal motivation, which is our self-esteem. Now, a lot of people will say, well, if you don't love yourself, nobody else can love you, which is true. But sometimes one will feed on the other. So without the love and belongingness, you're not going to build up that esteem. And if you don't have that self-esteem, then you're not going to go out and try to build up these relationships that you need to kind of go throughout your life. And then the last is self-actualization. Maslow said we don't usually get there until we're on our deathbed. Near-death experiences, notwithstanding, can cause self-actualization. It's that whole, realigning of what life is about and what's really important. So from here we go into role models. Who are those people that we want to be like? Most of the time we want to model ourselves after somebody that's successful, at least somewhat, or what we perceive to be successful. Not success doesn't always mean more money. Success doesn't always mean more things. Success is just, I want to be like you. So we surround ourselves with people that are like us, or the people that we want to be like. People say, don't dress for the job you have, dress for the job you want. So that's what that is. But you have to be careful, because if you try to model yourself after somebody that's well above where you are and has those ginormous goals, the fact is that you may stumble. And if those goals are too high and you don't make those goals, then that's going to reinforce that negative self-esteem. The slides then go into the intrinsic motivation versus the extrinsic motivations. Intrinsic motivation is really your major key to success, because if you do not have that internal drive, you're really not going to do anything. No matter how much people are outside pushing you to do better, you're not going to want to do better, or you're not going to do better as well as you could if you didn't have that internal motivation. That extrinsic motivation are those incentives, how we bribe our kids. If you clean your room, then we'll give you, either ice cream or allowance or whatever. So that or the opposite of that could be a punishment. If you don't do this, then something will happen. A reward and punishment. My cat's back there looking at something. So that extrinsic versus that intrinsic motivation. And then does one undermine the other? So you have to be careful there too. Self-regulation. We have to set goals, unrealistic goals, specific goals, moderately challenging goals. And they also have to have a long-term purpose, but they also have to have short-term accomplishment. Because if you have too much of long-term and not enough short-term, then you're never going to reach a certain goal. But if all you have is short-term, you're losing that all you have is short-term goals, you're losing that long-term goal setting. So you have to have as much of one as the other, because if you don't have the long-term, then you forget what the goal is. But if you don't have the short term, then you're not going to have that motivation or that reward there to say, oh, hey, I've completed something. Emotion in and of itself is a feeling, and it can include physiological arousal, conscious experience, behaviors, expression. It comes from all sorts of things. And then, of course, there's different types of emotions, right? You've got fear, you've got surprise, you've got it runs thing happy, sad. When you're looking at a person's face, what do you see? One of the things that autistic kiddos have a problem with is when they look at somebody, they don't necessarily interpret the correct emotion or the correct cue, that social cue of that when we're talking and we realize people are kind of over what we're talking about, you see them kind of make funny faces, or like, okay, yeah, okay, and most people pick up on those social cues. And we can identify emotion based on what we see, but our autistic kiddos don't always have that, and so they have a problem identifying emotion, and thus they having an issue with trying to figure out where they fit and why aren't people acting the way they're supposed to act. So, but that is the brief explanation of Chapter 10 on motivation and emotion. Again, I will go ahead and post the questions for Chapter 10, and of course I want them due by midnight on the 25th, which is Wednesday. In the meantime, you can just email them to me. I'm still trying to work with Canvas to try to figure out how all this works, and if I can get it to where you guys can just upload it onto Canvas. I'm still trying to figure all this out. Again, not technologically savvy, so we'll see what works and what doesn't. All right. In the meantime, of course, you can always email me. Even on the weekends, especially with the rest of the semester. I try to be pretty quick about answering. But remember, when you email me your answers, all I want, please don't email me the whole sheet. Like I usually post, there's 3 or 4 sheets of questions and answers and whatnot. Please don't email me back the whole assignment. You can pull it up in Word and you can delete everything but the right answer. That works. Or you can open up an additional Word document and then just put A, B, C, D, or whatever. It just makes life so much more easy for me. So if I have to, if I've pulled up on my computer, just one page is quicker for me to grade than if I have to flip through 4 or 5 pages, and it's just going to get exhausting because, you guys, have a lot to do at the end of the semester, and it's online, and so your lives are all up in, and hopefully you guys, your jobs are secure. That is my fervent prayer for all of you, is that this touches you as little as possible and that life gets back to normal quickly. But so that I don't go insane, which is a short trip for me anyway, just upload those answers to me. Right now, just do it via email. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. I've got my phone on me pretty much all the time. And because I am at home, things are a lot more available, so I'm not out and about, running here and there, so I'm a lot closer to my phone and my computer now. Again, as always, don't drink and drive. If you do, call me. I'll come get you. No questions asked, and I'm going to tell your mom. But you guys, please, please, please be safe. I miss you crazy something serious, and not how I wanted to finish this semester. But it is what it is, right? Don't worry about the exams right now. I'm still trying to figure all that out on my end. So you guys be safe, behave, and I will drop in on you in a couple of days. Take care, be safe, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.